Okay, welcome. This is Joey Cook with Smart Marketer, and this is video number 2. Today we're going to talk about the 5 competitive forces for profits. Yesterday, in the previous video, we talked about strategy change. So today, I'd like for you to remember that your current strategy got you to where you are today. So, question for you is, can my current strategy get me to where I want to go? Let that sink in for a moment. We're going to start with rivals today. And every industry is a little bit different. Your industry may or may not have intense rivalry, but you may be, for instance, maybe chained to a supplier that controls costs, prices, availability, and so forth. So the way that we address rivals and the way that we get a competitive edge on them is by utilizing a technology to allow us to identify in real time new prospective customers that have entered the marketplace. That alone is really incredible advantage over anybody else out there that's advertising to the haystack, so to speak, because it enables you to capture the attention of any new prospect as soon as they come into marketplace, and thereby obtaining that frame reference that we talked about and an authority status in their mind. So in order to be the one that captures the prospect's attention first, you've got to have 2 things. We're going to talk about that a little bit more in the next video, but I want you to keep that in mind, and we will help you identify what that is for your particular situation. So how do you compete against Google or Facebook? Talking about powerful suppliers. Well, it's hard to do, right? Since they're the largest suppliers of both ads and viewers. How do you do that? Well, first and foremost, I want to make it clear I am not at all anti-Google or anti-Facebook at all. I just think that their targeting capabilities are both always changing, but also not getting a whole lot better. We're stuck with demographics, broad general characteristics, zip codes, and things like that. So by utilizing this technology, it allows me to be platform agnostic. And I think you should use Google and Facebook for the delivery of your ads, but by handling the targeting outside of the tool set that they offer you and the tool set that everyone else who's using those platforms, the millions and millions of businesses that are using those platforms, are using. So we can offset that advantage and actually target people based on the exact behaviors that we or even you defined. So the most important part about marketing is the targeting. If you get that wrong, you're going to spend too much for too little return. Google, and this is really, really important to understand, Google and Facebook are operating on what's known as a relevance engines, what we call it, right? It's relevance. It's not at all about who's paying the highest price. In fact, you can't buy a premium position for a poorly targeted or created ad for more than about an hour. As soon as the engagement metrics and the bounce rate and the click-through ratio and that type of data begins to come through, they're just not going to show your ad anymore. And you're going to be on page 10, and that's it. And you will get no traffic. Their primary goal, if you look at it from their perspective, their primary goal is to deliver to that user, that visitor, exactly what they were looking for. In other words, the more relevant it is to that individual, the less that Google and Facebook will charge. In fact, we've got a video about this showing side by side how higher click-through ratio, slashes, and higher engagement, comments, shares, and so forth will drive the cost of that ad down dramatically, sometimes as much as 75%. That's a whole other topic. We've got a video on that. But since we own this data, you would own this data, it's completely and totally portable. You own the contact information, right down, in some cases, to name, address, phone number, demographics, and everything forever. You're no longer chained to one platform or another. So the next item is powerful buyers. As we discussed before, if prices go down, then your profit must also go down. You're either no longer getting a premium price or you're having to add some additional value, so your costs go up. These 5 forces are forces that all businesses will compete against to some degree or another. But If we control knowing who's in market in the first place, we have that advantage where other buyers or competitors don't. It gives us a fuller pipeline. So when you're able to start that conversation early in the buying cycle, you get the frame reference and you get to form a relationship with them first. Remember, these prospects that you're marketing to, they don't care about you. They care first and foremost about solving their problem. They care about the result that they are seeking. A smart buying decision, quote unquote, is what they are seeking, right? At all costs. It's human nature. They want to get value from what they're spending their money on. That is why they research, to answer the questions that they already have in their mind. Again, we're talking about more complicated sales here, not the express line at the supermarket. But in your sales cycle, there's a beginning and a middle and an end. And you have to meet that prospect wherever they are in that sales cycle. And that is in the research stage of their problem. So if you understand where they are in that process, it dictates how you would communicate with them, right? Does that make sense? So as an example, if I were to walk up to a woman that I've never met before in a bar and I say, "Will you marry me?" And I could be the greatest guy around, the best looking guy ever, and I'm both of those things, she's still going to say no. Why? Because she can't make that decision. She doesn't know me. She doesn't know if she can trust me. She doesn't know if I have any value or any redeeming qualities whatsoever. So there is no way that she can make a decision like that. I have to meet her where she is. And she's in the, I'd like to meet someone nice, and then we'll see where it goes stage. That's where your buyers are. That's where they are. They want to be with someone who's the right fit, that's a good person, that knows what they're doing, etc., that can benefit them in some way. And where they are in the beginning is that they want to make a smart business decision. So the exact same reason that you're watching this video right now for however many minutes that you've been listening to me, you are in the research phase and you want to make the right decision for your business and your situation, just like she does in that example. So threat of entry. Wow, that's a big one. Every day, new companies are forming, and new companies can mean new rivals, new entrants into the marketplace, new alternatives or substitutes for what you buy or sell in some cases. So what is your entry barrier against your competitors, right? These new competitors are going to come in and add capacity and competition and new additional products or services that may compete against you. What is your barrier to their entry? Think about that for a moment. The final item here is a big one, substitutes. And I'll be the first one to tell you that in the marketing field, there are tons of alternatives and substitutes. You don't have to hire us. There are potentially, or probably, quite possibly, not only dozens, but hundreds of different things that you can do. But if I didn't explain that to you, you would have no way of judging us against any other competing service, or not really even having an understanding of all the things that are going on there behind the scenes. Of course, I think there's a huge advantage to what we're doing over all of these other methods, but it goes back to what I was saying before. If we're not communicating the value to you, then how can you make an informed decision to even compare what we're doing to all the other possible things that you could be doing? So what we are doing right now, you and I, is I am beginning to form a relationship with you, or you are beginning to form a relationship with our brand. Your client needs something like this from you, and we can help take care of that for you. So our last item here is a big one, the powerful only factor. So don't forget this part. When you're communicating with prospects, you've got to be able to help them. You have to. You have to provide value to them, or you will be just another ad or blog post or article or ebook that they skipped right over because it didn't speak to the questions that they had in their mind. At this same time, it's a great way to demonstrate how your value proposition stacks up against everybody else. One of the biggest problems that I see with companies that we work with on a consistent basis is that they do not know how to identify their value proposition, or they don't know how to express an effective value proposition. The value prop that you offer needs to answer this question. Here goes. If I'm your ideal prospect, why should I buy from you? the center of appeal is want. So tell me why someone would want to buy from me. Okay? And it has to be something that they want. So if we know that they're looking to solve a certain problem, right, or to get a certain result, then you can't lead with something bland like we care about our clients. Well, that's great, and it is even appealing, but it's not something I want. It's not something I'm seeking out. You know, if my hair was on fire and you were the first person there with a glass of water, but you're not very good at actually putting out the fire, then does it even matter that you were expeditious in arrival or that you really cared? Not really. That is not something I want in a high interest way. Now, as I said before, we can talk about this more when we get on the phone, but essentially the greater the want, appeal, and the more the exclusivity, they can only get it from you, that overlap right there in the middle, that is your powerful only factor. So we can talk more about that a little bit later. Next video is coming up, and I appreciate your time. Thanks.